Is with us in Tucson, Arizona. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm very happy to be talking with you, Dave.
You too, sir. Thank you for calling in. How can I help?
So I just started listening to you and read Complete Guide to Money about a month ago.
Okay.
And I got my wife on board, and we're all for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have a pretty good plan ahead.
Good.
We talked about doing FPU,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that it's kind of, I guess, faith-based.
Mm-hmm.
I'm atheist and she's agnostic. Is this something that would still benefit us?
Well, it certainly will benefit you. There's no question about that. And you're more than welcome. Everyone's welcome to the class.
Okay.
Financial Peace University is the quote. It's not just faith-based. It's Christian-based. And it will be taught in a church. That's where you would be attending. I mean, I just want you to know what you're getting into, but you're more than welcome. I have lots of people that, are agnostic or atheist or just hadn't thought about it, or, they go to a different denomination than where the church is being held, so they don't always agree with everything going on under the church roof, that kind of thing. Or, I had a couple Muslim guys come through our Entree Leadership training the other day. I got to sit and talk to them. It was awesome. And but everybody's welcome. I'm not mad at anybody, so you're more than welcome, and I think you'll find the people teaching the class to be friendly and welcoming to you. I think just to kind of give you a guideline of the fact that you would call my show and ask me about this tells me you're not someone walking around with a chip on your shoulder just looking to be offended all the time.
No, not at all.
Okay, and so, if you're one of those, then you're probably going to find something to be offended about, right? And I don't think you are. I think if you read, you saw faith and you saw Scripture mentioned in Complete Guide to Money, right?
Sure, yeah.
And if you were not offended by that and received instruction from your worldview, in spite of that, would be the right way of saying it, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you saw value in that, then you'd probably have a pretty similar experience in Financial Peace University.
Okay.
They don't force you to get on your knees and pray before the class starts. We tell people not to do that, as a matter of fact. Not that there's anything wrong with that from our perspective, but it's a financial class. It's based on biblical things, but so's a Complete Guide to Money. As a matter of fact, Complete Guide to Money is the handbook that comes in the Financial Peace University class.
And that's what I found out, and
Yeah.
I got the book handed to me, so
Okay.
it really helped us out a lot, though.
Well, I'm glad it helped you. And you're more than welcome. You're going to see about that same level of Christianity woven into the class, in that as a Christian, I weave my faith into anything I teach, anywhere I am, but hopefully not doing it in a way that's so freaking overbearing that that makes you lose your taste for it, because I want to help you too,
No, and I haven't felt that way at all listening to you or reading the book. So.
Okay, cool. Well, that's probably what you're going to get, unless the coordinator just decides to get overzealous leading the class. But generally, the actual content in the videos would be about the same level, with the exception of the last lesson, which is a tithing lesson on giving. But if you just convert that from tithing to giving in your mind as you're hearing it, you probably will get instruction from that as well.
Okay.
Hey, man, thanks for the call, and I hope you enjoy the class. This is the Dave Ramsey and I Deserve. What's up?
So 7 years ago, I got turned on to your system, and at that point, I was, over $70,000 in credit card debt and didn't really have a clue what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out and got 3 jobs and just started working like crazy. And 7 years later, I have a corporation. I have over 40 employees.
Wow.
And we just purchased our second commercial property in downtown San Jose. So
Great.
Have $5 million in commercial property and did buy a nice $1 million house in the Bay Area, which is basically a small tract home.
Mm-hmm.
But my mind is still the nervousness about money and spending. So I'm wondering at what point, I've already do the full max on retirement. I've already do the 10% to my church. But at what point are you able to enjoy your hard work? Mm-hmm. I still drive my 200,000-mile car, and I don't like spending money on non-necessities right now.
Now, what's your household income, sir?
I make a little under $400.
Okay. Well, you're choosing to not enjoy money as a choice. It's not a mathematical fact. You make a ton of money. You're killing it. You've gotten yourself cleaned up. You're funding your 401k. You've got your emergency fund in place. I don't hear anything as a danger sign here. You make $400k. Go buy yourself a freaking car, man. Take your wife on a cruise.
Yeah, well, my wife has the nice $70,000 car, but for me, I can't spend money on myself.
Okay, let me ask you this. How much money are you giving? What's your generosity look like?
Well, through my business and personal, I give about $500,000 a year.
Okay, so the $400,000 is after that occurs. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, we did about $10 million this year. So we did 400,000.
How personally engaged are you in the things that you're giving to? Are you just writing a check and stepping back, or you got your hands on it?
No, I have my hands in giving and funding schools in South America and stuff.
Okay. All right. Because usually when your generosity kicks up, it kind of gives you permission to enjoy the money. That's why I was suggesting that. But it sounds like that hasn't worked.
Yeah, I mean, we do. Trust me, it's been a blessing, but I just know that as easy as it.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, let's talk about this thing. Let's walk through some math for a second. You're giving away $500,000. You're making $400,000. Do you think whether you drive a $20,000 or $50,000 car or a $3,000 car actually matters in this math?
No,
it doesn't. It's irrelevant. So you're really not accomplishing anything by this. It's not like you're being conservative so that you're safe. Dude, you got other stuff that's going to take you down long before a car price takes you down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so those commercial buildings, as an example, would have been something to be more concerned about. But, I mean, you're doing great.
It was when we pulled the trigger. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you buy a $5 million building, but you can't buy a $40,000 car. So, I mean, this is just mental for you. It really is. It's okay. It's okay. But I just want to give you permission to enjoy it. A percentage of your money should be given. A percentage of your money should be invested. And a percentage of your money should be enjoyed. I've taught a whole bunch of you to live with less stuff, to find a cure for your stuffitis. And they've also modeled it. These guys are amazing. The Netflix documentary is just, it's enthralling. And it is done so well. They've been on everything. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Forbes, Time, ABC, CBS, all the alphabets. It's all there. Even NPR, so they're there. And they were in town. Rachel did their podcast with them last night. Rachel Cruz, one of the Ramsey personalities, my daughter did. And she said, they're coming over to the office. You got to get them on the air. And I said, of course we got to get them on the air. These guys are big time. Welcome, guys. It's good to have you.
Oh, man. Thank you so much. What a dream come true for us, Dave. Thanks so much for having us, man.
Same for us, man. You guys have been tearing it up out there. We're so proud of you. And you've helped so many people. Approximately 20 million people have been impacted by this message. By the way, if you are a minimalist follower already, which if you're not, that just means you live in a cave somewhere. So get out more. You should get out more. But if you are and you want to talk to these guys, you got a question or a comment for them, maybe you just want to tell them thanks. We're going to take calls in just a few minutes. So the phone number right now, you can get online and tell Kelly you want to talk to these guys. It's 888-825-5225. That's 888-825-5225. Now, I don't know what percentage of our world knows every detail about you guys, but it's a bunch. The overlap.
It's quite a bit.
Because we tell people to do beans and rice, rice and beans, which is a form of minimalism. To lower your lifestyle, stop your spending, so you got money to get out of debt. And that intersects with your all's message so much that a ton of our tribes, your tribe and my tribe, intersect, don't they?
There's a ton of overlap. I mean, I think you are talking about the same thing that Josh and I are talking about, and that's really about how can we control these impulses that we have on a daily basis. And when we let these impulses run amok, especially with our finances, we can find ourselves in a world of hurt. So, I mean, for Josh and I, our main mission really is to help people realize, well, a couple things. A, you don't need nearly as much as what the advertisements tell you that you need. And that you can be content without chasing that status quo American dream. And really, when someone feels like they have enough, when they feel secure enough, that's when they start to look outward. And that's when they start to see what they can do for their community, what they can do for their friends and family. And that's the one thing we really love about you all is giving. I mean, in the every dollar app, that's the first line item that you have you suggest people budget for is giving. And ultimately, Josh and I were trying to help people be content enough to where they feel like they can give beyond themselves in a meaningful way.
And you have. That contentment is a big deal. 25 years ago when we started teaching this stuff, we told people then, and it's still true today, we live in the most marketed to culture in the history of the world. And marketing in and of itself is not evil.
Right.
But the very essence of marketing, including when you're selling a book or I'm selling a book, is to plant some level of dissatisfaction, discontentment, until I get that item or what the item's going to bring me, and then I feel, or the experience, it doesn't even have to be an item, it could be a vacation, but when I get that, then I'm supposed to be okay. And the problem is the messages are exceeding the gathering of these things, and there's no way that we don't live in the most discontented culture. So I think that's what you guys have tapped into, and it's just gone zoom, zoom. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm so proud of y'all, man.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it, Dave. We see over 5,000 advertisements a day. I mean, that's over 1 million a year.
They're in the bathroom.
It's crazy.
You can't go to the bathroom without an advertisement. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So tell people that don't know, for the uninitiated, what is minimalism?
So the way I think about minimalism is it's the thing that gets us past the things so we can make room for life's most important things, which actually aren't things at all. The average American household has more than 300,000 items in it. And that's not me going around counting other people's stuff. That's LA Times reported that a few years ago. And it's not that things are inherently bad or evil, just like you talked about marketing. When marketing's done really well, you're being polite and saying, hey, I might have a solution to a problem that you already have.
We do kind of have a problem. When we moved when I was a kid, one of the boxes, you label the boxes you pack stuff in?
Yes.
Was labeled seldom used kitchen items. I mean, that is the world we live in, isn't it?
That's rather specific. And I think the thing is, with all those items, they actually get in the way of what a more meaningful life can be. We make these aspirational purchases, like, oh, that looked really great on that mannequin, or that car looked really great in that ad. I think it's going to add value to my life, but is it really going to add value? So for me, minimalism was a way for me to figure out what are the things that are truly going to add value to my life, that amplify, that augment my experience of life, and then get rid of those things that are just in the way. What is that excess that, I look at our items as there are 3 different types of items. There are the essentials. We all have the same basic essentials, right? We all need clothing and shelter and food. And then there are non-essentials, the things that truly add value to our lives, things that will make our life better when we have them. And there's the third category, and that is junk. That is the seldom used kitchen items, right? And seldom used actually means just in case. I think those are the 3 most dangerous words in the English language, right? It means I'm going to hold on to these just in case I might need them someday and some not.
It's a line of somebody that has the psychological disorder of hoarding.
Yeah.
They use that same line, and in a sense, we all have a little bit of that disorder in this culture, don't we?
Well, I was
in case.
I was a well-organized hoarder. So you came to my house. I wasn't a candidate for the TV show because all of my stuff were in all of these bins and boxes, an ordinal, alphabetized system of stuff that I was never going to use in my basement, in my second living room, in my attic. All of these things. I had built this mausoleum of stuff called a suburban house and decided, well, I think these things are going to make me happy. Well, maybe the next thing will make me happy. Maybe the next thing. But of course, you get that next thing, and the ephemeral pleasure, it doesn't last far past the checkout line.
And it turns out the VHS collection probably isn't going to work out.
Someday, just in case.
The cassette collection is probably just not going to work out.
That's right.
But so what led you two into this? I know the story, but I'll throw you the underhand pitch.
It kind of started with me. We both grew up really poor in Dayton, Ohio, so just right up the road here in Dayton. And, we thought we were so unhappy because we didn't have any money growing up. I was on food stamps and government assistance, and there was a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in the household, a lot of bad decisions. And the reason we were so discontented had to be because there was no money. So when I went out, I turned 18, I got the entry-level corporate job, and I spent the next decade climbing the corporate ladder. And by my late 20s, I had achieved everything I ever wanted, 6-figure salary, the luxury cars, plural. I don't know what the plural of Lexus is, but
Lexus.
Lexi.
There we go. Lexi. Lexi. That's it. Yeah.
I had all the stuff. The closet's full of really expensive clothes that I seldom wore, and all of these things. But of course, with that American dream came my version, which was the American debt. I made really good money, but I spent even better money, and that wasn't a dream at all. I realized this was someone else's dream that they had conjured up for me, and this template wasn't necessarily working anymore.
The Minimalists are our guests, Joshua and Ryan, this half hour. If you want to talk, the phone number is 888-825-5225. Kelly's keeping the lines open just for you guys to jump in to have a chance to talk to them. If you haven't seen the documentary, be sure you look it up. If you haven't followed them on social, you should. The Minimalist.com will lead you to everything you want. Very highly rated podcast, and you can see why. We're going to talk more in this next segment coming up. Stick with us. This is the Dave Ramsey Show. Joshua and Ryan join us, the Minimalists, this half hour. If you want to talk to them, the phone number is 888-825-5225. So Joshua was telling his story. He was doing the corporate ladder, gathered up all the stuff, and the stuff doesn't do it for you. You buy enough stuff, it just more stuff. And I tell people all the time, if you eat enough lobster, it just tastes like soap. I mean, there's just only so much of this stuff you can do, right? And then it reaches a point of satiation in your psychology, and it just doesn't do it anymore. You figure out, there is no rider truck following a hearse. The stuff is not going to do it. So what was your story then, Ryan? How'd you get here?
So for me, it's weird, Dave. If you were to have told my 18-year-old self what my 28-year-old self was going to have, I would have been the most excited 18-year-old. Like, wow, I'm gonna be buying a new car. Borrowing money to buy a new. I'm going to be able to buy a new car every couple of years. I'm going to be able to get a 2,000 square foot home with 2 living rooms. I'm going to have a good job at a respectable corporation, and I'm going to be so happy. And I did have everything that I ever wanted at 28 years old, but I didn't have happiness. I had a lot of discontent. I had a lot of debt. I was miserable, and I didn't really know which way was up. And I remember seeing Josh make these changes in his life over several months, to the point where he started making. I remember what really caught my attention is he started giving our boss rules on when our boss was allowed to contact him. Hey man, I'm not going to answer my phone after 9 o'clock. If it's Christmas Eve, it's 6 p.m. and I'm out to dinner, I'm going to ignore your call because it's Christmas Eve and I'm spending time with friends, or I'm spending time with family. And that type of talk was kind of sacrilegious. So I went to Josh and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what is going on with you, man? Why are you so happy? And that's when he introduced this thing called minimalism to me. And not only that, he showed me a whole community of people who called themselves minimalists. And it was a wide range of people. There was a guy named Colin Wright who was traveling the world, carrying everything he owned on his back. I like having a kitchen table, so that wasn't like the most appealing life. But then there's a guy named Leo Babauta. He had 6 kids, him and his wife living out in San Francisco. There was a gal named Courtney Carver. She was living in Salt Lake City with her teenage daughter. But what I realized is that there are these people living meaningful lives, and they're using this thing called minimalism to do it. So I got really excited. I looked at Josh. I said, all right, man, I'm in. I'm going to be a minimalist. Now what? I didn't really know where to start.
You get rid of your stuff.
Right. So we started with, I didn't want to spend several months packing up like Josh had. I mean, that was a great approach for him, but I just needed some faster results, typical American attitude, right? So we came up with this crazy idea called a packing party, where we decided to pack all my belongings as if I were moving, and then I would unpack only the items I needed over the next 3 weeks. So Josh came over and he literally helped me box up everything, my clothes and kitchenware, my towels, my TVs, my electronics, my frame photographs and paintings, my toiletries, and even my furniture, everything. We literally pretended like I was moving. So after 3 weeks of unpacking, you can imagine those first things. I'm unpacking some clothes for work, a toothbrush, some toiletries. Well, after those 3 weeks, I had 80% of my stuff still sitting in those boxes, just sitting there unaccessed. And I had this huge just light bulb moment about how I have spent this past decade of my life accumulating tens of thousands of dollars worth of things to make me happy, and they were not doing their job. So I decided to donate and sell all of it, and that's really where the Minimalists.com started. It was with that 21-day packing party story.
And what happens, I think, with people that are following you guys is that some of them do it by degrees, in that they just limit.
Yeah.
They take their life and just cut it some.
Yeah.
And so that's a level of influence. And then some of them go down further than you. Like, for instance, the guy traveling the world that's in the documentary that you mentioned, he's down to just 2 bags of stuff and is on his shoulders.
Right. Everything he owns
is on his
right
back.
there.
And at one point, you were like 288 items you were?
Yeah. Just that was sort of I realized that there was this weird sort of competition going on in this whole minimalism space where it was like, because I think minimalism is not about deprivation, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting towards.
Because if that's a contest, I'm not going to win, because I saw one guy own 50 items and someone else was like, well, no, I own 45, and there's someone else who owns 15, and eventually when you're just naked and running in the street, that wasn't appealing to me. I'll tell you what, Dave, if you came to my house right now, we have a 5-year-old daughter, so my life looks appreciably different now at age 37 than when I was 28 and I first discovered minimalism.
Right. Yeah.
And so you came to our house now, you wouldn't say, oh my goodness, this guy's a minimalist. You'd probably just walk in and say, wow, they're pretty tidy, this family is.
Yeah, they're simple.
Yeah,
Simple living, yeah.
It's because we don't own much, but everything we do own adds real value to our lives. Each of our belongings, like my car, my clothes, my kitchenware, my furniture, has a function.
And it changes the way you purchase something.
Yeah.
You start looking at it like, really?
What's the real cost of this? Because sometimes there's a price tag. The price tag says this widget's $100, but what does it also cost to fuel the thing, to change the oil in the thing, replace the batteries in the thing, store the thing, clean the thing?
The more stuff you own, the more repairmen you have to know.
Yes, and then it ends up owning you.
Yeah, it piles up. Very cool. All right, let's jump on the phones and see who's out there. Looks like Kansas City's calling in, and Elizabeth is with us. Hey, Elizabeth, your question for Joshua and Ryan.
Hey there. Hey, Dave. I just want to say thanks for all that you do, and I'm so excited that Ryan and Josh are talking about this. This is so needed in our society. I'm a single mom, and I wanted to know, I have 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Their father is a very successful attorney and gives all kinds of fun, expensive gifts, and they're actually going on a trip right now overseas for 2 weeks.
You got Disney Dad in the background. Yeah.
Yes,
so what's your question?
How can I influence my kids towards minimalism and wholeness? That it doesn't come from things. What do you guys think about that?
I first embraced minimalism. I had this pivot point. My mother died, my marriage ended, both in the same month. And these 2 events forced me to look around and start to question what had become my life's focus. And Elizabeth, I realized that I was focused on the wrong stuff. And so when I started simplifying my life, it took me about 8 months. I radically simplified. People around me started noticing something was different. Ryan came to me and said, hey, why the heck are you so happy lately? People at work were saying, you seem less stressed. You seem so much calmer. Why aren't you being as mean as you used to be? And it opened up the door for me to talk about this thing, because I never jumped up and said, look at me, I'm becoming a minimalist, and you need to too. It's not about the proselytizing of minimalism. It's about showing people what the benefits are. So I always start with a question. How might your life be better with less? And we do that with our 5-year-old daughter right now. Also, how might your life be better if you're giving instead of just taking all of the time? So I think whether we're dealing with adults or kids, we have to talk about what are the benefits of simplifying for you, because I think they're different for each of us. For me, it was just finances at first, but then it was rediscovering time for my creativity and for other values in my life that were important. But what are the benefits for you, Elizabeth, and then what are the benefits for your kids?
Yeah, just talk it through with them, and you just the thing is, how do you define what's important? That's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just, we're redefining what's important.
Yeah.
The gathering of stuff is not what's important.
Right.
And it's not a lack of stuff.
No.
It doesn't have to be that you're not a bad minimalist if you have over 104 items. I mean, you can't. There's not a mark like that. It's a mindset that says stuff is not where I'm going to draw my happiness. Stuff is not where I'm going to draw my meaning. Is that right?
Exactly. I'm so glad you bring that up, because the packing party, you're right. Like me packing up my stuff and being confronted with 80% of my possessions. You're right. It wasn't the packing up of the stuff. It wasn't getting rid of the 80% of stuff that was freeing. What was freeing is reprioritizing what my priorities were. Because up until that point, if you would have asked me, hey, Ryan, what are your priorities? I would have said, well, my health, that's a major priority, but I was eating fast food every day. My finances, I want to retire, but I was spending money on all that stuff.
Yeah.
And what I realized is my priorities, it's not what I say I do, it's what I actually do.
Amen. Joshua and Ryan, thanks for hanging out. The Minimalists.
Man, it's been awesome.
We are the show. We're glad you are here. Dean is with us in Clarksville. Hi, Dean. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the call.
Sure. How can I help?
First off, thank you for what you're doing. You've done a lot for my wife and I in our financial aspect of life.
Good.
I am 25 years old. My wife is 23.
Mm-hmm.
We're making about $30,000 a year, and following your principles, we're debt free except for $32,000 on our home.
I'm sorry, you said $3,000. You're making what? 30,000.
We're making $30,000
a year
per year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I said we're debt free except for $32,000 on our home.
Okay. Good. Cool.
We're also wanting to save $10,000 to $15,000 somewhere around there for a car.
Mm-hmm.
And the main question that I have, I've been working for my dad since I was 14, general construction, and I'd like to start flipping houses. Mm-hmm. So my question is, how do I get started in that?
Okay. Well, let's back up one step. If you're making $32,000, I probably wouldn't have $15,000 tied up in a car, if that's your household income, because you don't want more than half your annual income tied up in things that are going down in value, which is cars. So I'd probably back the budget down on the car a little bit. But then back to your flipping houses question. As you know, you said you've been following some of our stuff. I don't borrow money, and I teach people not to borrow money. So that means flipping houses is a little difficult from your situation, because you'd have to be going into debt to do it, obviously. And I'm not going to set you up for that. It's actually how I went broke when I was your age. I was flipping houses, and I had $3 million in debt on house flips, and the bank got sold to another bank. They called our notes, and it took 2.5 years for me to lose everything I owned. I don't want to put you on that gravy train. The gravy's not good. So, I just don't want that plan for you. So instead, what I would tell you to do is this. One is, if you have the ability to find a house cheap enough that you could flip it and make money on it, then you have the ability to tie that house up and sell it to another investor that does have money. And so I actually made good money doing that after I went broke. I had no credit and I had no money because I had gone through bankruptcy, but I did know how to dig up a deal, and I had been doing that. So I would find a property in foreclosure, for instance. I'll make up some numbers. Let's say I found a $50,000 house in foreclosure and I could buy it for $21,000. I did this a lot. And I would write a contract with the owner to buy the house in the next 5 days for $21,000, subject to my partner's agreement, contingent upon my partner's agreement. And then I would go and talk to real estate investors that I knew that wanted a house of that type and sell it to them. And maybe I had 21 was the contract, but I might sell it to them for 26, which is still a great deal on a $50,000 house. But I'm making $5,000 on the spread on the contract, and I paid nothing. I didn't pay up. I never bought it. I just sold the contract, sold the position, and then another investor went in and bought it. Now, one of the reasons you're wanting to flip houses is because you know how to do construction, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and that plan that I just outlined doesn't involve you doing any construction. What you've got to be careful of in the house flipping business when you do construction is you don't want to buy a house, go into debt, and you go in there with your sweat and fix the house up and then only make wages that you would have made working for somebody else fixing their house up. So, I mean, if you go to work for somebody doing a remodel job, they'll pay you to do that, right? And you'll make a profit, and you don't have to go in debt to work for, Joe and fix up Joe's house over here. He'll pay you, your construction costs plus a profit. And if you don't make your wages plus a profit that you would have made on a regular job, plus make money on the investment, then you didn't really make money on the house flip. You just are buying a house so you have a remodel job. And you can get remodel jobs without buying houses. You can get them for other people. So make sure you're not just paying yourself out wages when you're doing your own work like that. I know a lot of guys that swing a hammer and know how to use a paintbrush that have fooled themselves into thinking they're making money on the houses, and really all they're making money is on the remodel. And if you're not making more than you would have made doing the remodel for somebody else, then you don't need to be doing the house deal. And they'll say, oh, well, I can go in and I can fix it up for X or Y. Yeah, well, you're not counting any profit on your remodel job. And you would have made that profit had you been working for somebody else on a remodel job. So make sure you don't make that mathematical mistake in your estimates on your business plan on your flips. So I would start out just doing some flips and get some money piled up that you didn't own, like I was talking about. And then once you get some money piled up, and if you want to do some side remodel jobs for some people, do that. And if you want to start working for some real estate investors, do that. Or maybe you go in with somebody that's a real estate investor, and they give you a piece of the profit in return for you doing the remodel, and they buy the house with their money. And that way you're not in debt. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat rather than you just going down the bank and borrowing money to flip houses, which is a really good way to go bankrupt. Not just because I did it, but because a whole lot of people flip this house has bankrupt more people than just about any other program out there. And it's just not as easy as it looks. And so you get in there and actually do some flips, do some other stuff, and learn the business. And then when you've actually got real money that you put into the deal, you'll do a lot better deals.